Welcome back to Full Court Femmes.
I am so looking forward to this episode, Erin. What a great time to be a Johnny's fan.
We have to take a moment and just acknowledge what happened at the Garden.
Because St. John's didn't just win a big game. They beat the Yukon Huskies, the number 3 team in the country on Friday night. And that atmosphere was insane.
Woohoo! Such an unbelievable game. I'm so happy that you were there, Caroline, and so jealous that Annie and I weren't. It was a spectacular game to watch on TV, and I can only imagine how you felt when you were in that arena. We got to get into this because it'll be so much fun to relive that moment and break down exactly how St. John's pulled off one of the biggest wins of the season. So it's not just the result, but it's the performance that made it happen that night.
Final score at MSG, St. John's 81, Yukon 72. And it wasn't a fluke. The numbers tell a very deliberate story.
And that story starts at the center of everything that St. John's did right.
Because when this game needed control, it came from one place first.
Your man, Caroline. You knew it. You believed. It all begins with Zuby Ejiofor. He put up a complete stat line, 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists.
Erin, he's been doing this all season. That's his 5th double-double in a big moment. He was efficient, 6 of 10 from the field, and influential in every phase, scoring, rebounding, initiating offense late. His passing is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And he had steals too. Like, he was an all-star on that court all around. And that's the kind of performance that doesn't just show up in the box score. It affects every single aspect of the game flow.
Then we've got to talk about Dylan Mitchell with 15 points. He continuously attacked the paint and kept pressure on UConn's interior defender.
Mitchell was on fire again. Like, between him, Zuby, and now Bryce Hopkins, who provided 14 points of unbelievable scoring and rebounding support, keeping the offense balanced and versatile.
That's a trio contributing in different ways, not just counting points, but making the right play when it mattered.
So let's actually talk about the team as a whole, because I know we've called out 3 guys, but really the team together, the chemistry, that's where the story really sharpens. St. John's played the game at 50% from the field, knocked down critical free throws, and most importantly, forced UConn into 15 turnovers.
Funny, but UConn actually shot better than St. John's, over 54% from the field, and still couldn't overcome the giveaways. That includes 9 turnovers from Silas Damari, who led the Huskies with 18 points.
You don't sound so much like a New Yorker this time.
I know.
Those miscues mattered, Caroline, because they turned into extra possessions for St. John's, and the Johnnies cashed in on them.
And this is the key idea. Here's how you win a game where you shoot worse. It comes down to opportunities, not percentages.
So let's start with those shot attempts. St. John's took more shots than UConn.
Because they created more possessions, Erin.
They did, from 15 turnovers, Caroline.
That's 15 possessions where UConn didn't even get a shot, and St. John's did.
And even if you only convert a portion of those into attempts, that's a massive swing in the total opportunity.
Then add in rebounding.
Oh my gosh, the guys were on fire. They won the defensive rebounding battle, and that matters because UConn didn't get second shots to stack on top of their efficiency.
So UConn's higher shooting percentage stayed isolated to first looks. It never multiplied.
UConn shot better per attempt, but St. John's had more attempts overall.
More shots, forced turnovers, and finished possessions equal more chances to score, even at a lower efficiency.
And that's how you win a game when the percentages don't favor you.
You don't chase efficiency. You create volume without chaos.
And that's grown-up basketball. Our boys are growing up, Caroline. They're getting ready for the big battles of the season.
And you saw it beyond the starters, too. Dylan Darling came off the bench, hit a key 3 late, scored all 9 of his points in the second half. The kind of swing that tilts a tight game.
And he didn't bounce the ball over top of his head like we told him to.
Another telling number. The game was tied at 39 at halftime.
Nobody knew what was going to go on in that second half. But what happened was St. John's outscored UConn 42-33 in that second half. A full possession edge, and that's where execution took over.
And here's the part that really explains the flip.
St. John's shot worse than UConn from the field and from threes.
UConn had the higher field goal percentage and the better three-point percentage.
And yet, St. John's wins by 9. Woohoo!
That doesn't just happen by accident, Erin.
No, it doesn't. It happens because St. John's created more chances, forced turnovers, converted into points, and didn't give those possessions back.
That's control, Erin. And this is where we have to stop for a second. because this wasn't just a good win.
No, it was a called win. And in our house, there were a few people who didn't have the Johnnies winning, but only one person stood strong, and she's here with us now.
Annie had St. John's 72-71.
And the final ended up 81-72, but the read was right.
Woohoo! What a game, what a game. Yeah, the number didn't land, but the game did.
Explain that, Annie.
Caroline, this never felt like a game that would open up early. UConn wasn't going to give you clean runs, and St. John's wasn't going to rush trying to find one.
Which is exactly how it was played, Andy.
Right, Erin. Tight first half, pressured defense, long possessions, and then separation late. Not from shooting lights out, but from stacking stops and converting mistakes.
That's the margin showing up.
Exactly. The score stretched, but the script didn't change. St. John's stayed patient longer, and that's why the number broke the way it did.
So even though the score reads different than you had originally predicted.
Yep, Erin, math was the same.
And it wasn't a perfect game, as we've said.
It was a commanded one.
So when you look back at how this game unfolded, the pressure, the patience, the way St. John's stayed in.
It feels like the right moment to check ourselves.
Because the ideas were there before the tip.
Now we get to see how they held up.
And this is the best one, because we beat UConn. Balls are busted! UConn edition.
Prediction number 1, St. John holds UConn under 70 points.
All right, come on. We said 72. This should be a bold, but we're going to be honest with everybody. And it's a bust. I still feel like it should count because we were only off by 2 points. And UConn's number 3 in the country.
We were so close and we won the game. So we're taking that one.
All right, fine. Prediction number 2, St. John's wins the defensive rebounding margin.
That's bold, Erin.
Yes, it is. We talked about it a few moments ago. They finished possessions and didn't allow UConn to stack second chances.
Prediction number 3, neither team leads by a double digits at any point.
Honestly, okay, that's a bust, but thank God UConn never did. So we'll leave it at that.
St. John's earned separation late, Erin, and that matters. In fact, St. John's built a 55-45 lead with 12:46 remaining in the second half, following a 3-pointer by Bryce Hopkins.
It's so much fun to relive this. That was those were moments. That was a great, okay. Prediction number 4, St. John's forces UConn into double-digit turnovers. That's a bold, Caroline. St. John's forced 15 UConn turnovers.
Pressure without panic, hands without gambling.
All right, prediction number 5, the last one for this UConn first game. St. John's scores at least 10 fast break points.
That's a bold, Erin.
St. John's actually scored 11 fast break points. They chose when to run and punish mistakes.
So that's 3 bold, 2 busted, and a win that was bigger than the math.
Who brings us to the hard part.
Because now comes the follow-up.
St. John's hosts Xavier Musketeers at the Garden.
Erin, this one makes me nervous because coming off such a big win, this can't be a letdown. These teams saw each other back on January 24th, and St. John's won 88-83 in a game that was faster, looser, and more offensive than what we just saw.
And I remember going through that game with you, Caroline. We were on the edge of our seats. It was not an easy win, to your point. And since that loss, Xavier's tried to stay competitive in Big East play. They beat DePaul with a narrow margin recently.
But they had 2 big losses to Seton Hall and UConn. And in those games, they looked like a completely different team than the one we faced in January. They're still a team that wants pace, confidence, and rhythm, especially early.
And that's what makes them dangerous, as you said.
Now let's talk about how Xavier actually showed up in this series so far, because the way they played on January 24th tells you a lot about the matchups in front of St. John's again. First up is Trey Carroll, the Musketeers' leading scorer this season.
You know, we've been watching Trey Carroll since that game on the 24th. I still think he needs to do something with his hair. But he leads Xavier in scoring. And against St. John's, he had 22 points, knocked down 6 free throws, showing up when the game tightened and pressure mounted. He's the one who made us nervous.
This guy can do it all. That efficiency and late clock decisions is what makes him dangerous.
So for St. John's, this matchup starts with bodying him. Make him work for every bucket instead of letting him grab rhythm along the way.
Then there's Philippe Bovenson. Xavier leaned on him inside.
I'm so happy you had to say his name again. He finished with 11 rebounds, including boards on both ends.
And he chipped in 6 assists in that game, which made him more than an interior threat. He helped tilt possessions and open spacing for his...
If St. John's limits second chances and makes him work to initiate offense, they blunt a lot of Xavier's rhythm.
And then there's Malik Messina Moore. one of Xavier's most consistent shooters.
On January 24th, he finished with 14 points and shot 40% from three, spacing the floor and keeping St. John's guards honest.
That's how Xavier spread out the St. John's defense, forcing closeouts, creating kickouts, and opening lanes.
Guarding him aggressively without overhelping is going to be critical in the rematch.
That's a trio that forces you to execute on every possession.
So it's not about one hero, just like we saw with UConn. It's going to be about three. Three that threaten you and stress you in different parts of defense.
So this isn't about locking down a single role.
It's about controlling the composition of Xavier's game.
And that brings us right into what St. John's has to do to win this second meeting, because this is a very different test than UConn.
So it's not a prove it again game, it's a manage it again game.
All right, here we go. Key number 1, take away Xavier's second shot.
If we go back to the first game, Xavier stayed alive because they extended possessions.
They got 11 rebounds from Vincent alone, plus kickouts that kept St. John's defense working late.
This time, it has to be one shot and out.
If Xavier isn't getting second chances, their offense shrinks.
All right, so let's talk about key number 2. Make Trey Carroll score through contact, not rhythm.
Carroll had 22 points in the first meeting.
But most of his damage came when he found comfort.
You don't erase him.
You make every bucket cost something.
Key number 3, stay home on shooters without losing the paint.
This is specifically about Messina Moore. He hit 14 points, as we said, and shot 40% from threes in the first game.
That came off overhelp and scrambling.
So St. John's has to trust its interior defense. Don't give shooters clean looks just to protect the rim.
Force Xavier to finish over bodies, not off kickouts.
So key number 4, don't let the game speed up just because the crowd does.
This is a garden game, and Xavier would love for it to turn loose early.
They don't need to pace to win this matchup. They need the crowd to pace with them.
And they need control.
Good shots beat fast shots.
Key number 5, finish the last 8 minutes like a ranked team.
And they are! January 24th, Titans late. We don't want to see that again.
No. And that's where St. John's maturity showed. Protect the ball, value the possession, take the air out when it's there.
It isn't about replaying the UConn win, though we want to over and over and over again.
It's about proving you can win the next game right away.
This is so important because it's a different opponent, a different test.
Same discipline though, Erin.
But if this game is about repeating habits and managing,
then the predictions have to be measurable.
Why do I get so excited about this? Boulder busted! Xavier edition. Prediction number 1. St. John's holds Xavier to 9 or fewer offensive rebounds.
This goes straight to finishing possession.
And putting Borvincian on his ass. Xavier extended the January 24th game with second chances, as we said.
If St. John's keeps Xavier under 10 offensive boards, it means 1 shot and out.
All right, let's do it. Put it in the book. Prediction number 2. St. John's holds Trey Carroll to 7 or fewer free throw attempts.
This prediction isn't about his total points. It's about how they come.
If St. John's keeps him under 8 trips to the line, they've defended without giving rhythm.
Prediction number 3. St. John's allows 6 or fewer made threes.
6 or fewer made threes.
6
I
or
think
fewer. I'm
trying
sorry.
to say.
My heart's still beating since the UConn game. Let me try that again. St. John's allows 6 or fewer made threes.
How about just 6 or less threes? What do you think? We'll write it that way. Post it in the book. This is discipline. Clean looks from 3 kept Xavier spaced in the first meeting.
If St. John's holds them to 6 or fewer made threes, it means closeouts were controlled, not frantic.
I'm just going to go to prediction number 4. Who knows what's going on with 3? St. John's wins the turnover margin by at least 5. This is how you manage pace and write a prediction.
Protect the ball on one end, force late decisions on the other.
A 5+ margin means St. John's dictated the game without forcing it.
Prediction number 5. St. John scores 12 or more points off turnovers.
I'm so happy we're almost done with these predictions because we're not getting them out. This is the last one, the payoff prediction. Forcing mistakes only matters if you convert them.
St. John's turns Xavier turnovers into 12 or more points. That's control turning into separate.
None of these require a shooting outlier.
They require attention to detail.
So same habits as UConn, but different opponent.
All right, we've talked habits, we've talked matchups, we've talked margins.
So it's time again.
Annie calls the score.
Hello, Annie.
Hello, ladies. This one feels different than the UConn game, not because it's easier, because it's asked for discipline instead of patience.
All right, tell us a little bit more about what you mean there, Annie.
Erin, Xavier wants rhythm, they want pace, they want the game to loosen just enough to make mistakes matter.
And that's exactly what St. John's can't give them.
Caroline, that's right. If St. John's finishes possessions, limits second chances, and doesn't give free throws, the math stays on their side.
All right, so where does it land?
Erin, I think this is controlled most of the way. A couple of Xavier pushes, but nothing sustained.
No runaway?
No runaway. No. St. John's manages the night, uses the bench, and closes with structure.
All right, I can't wait. Put a number on it, Annie.
All right, drum roll. Here we go. I've got St. John's 80, Xavier 70.
That's not fireworks.
No fireworks. It doesn't need to be. It's about repeating the work.
And that is exactly how you handle the follow-up from a national win. When this one's done, though, the road does not get lighter.
Nope, because next up is the Providence Friars on the road.
Back to the only team that has beaten our Johnnies in the league this season. I hate saying that.
That game back on January 3rd still matters, not because of what it was.
No, but because of what it represents.
Providence is the one team that found the cracks, the one team that turned a good night into a loss.
I hate that. I just hate that. So it's not a stretch about winning games.
It's about answering questions.
Xavier will test our discipline, as we said.
Providence tests memory. We'll be back to break it all down.
So make sure you're subscribed to Full Court Femmes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
No hype, all hoops.
Let's go,
Johnnies!